All right, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about research that I had to do for my classroom-based research class for grad school. Students are entering and leaving first grade below reading level. Teachers have knowledge and skills on teaching reading level and teaching reading, but are not utilizing best practices on how the skills should be taught. And it's not necessarily their fault, it's just what the state and district has given teachers to use. Decodable text should be used to practice and reinforce phonics skills that have been taught in isolation. Research will be done with a sample of four first grade teachers in a Title I suburban pre-K through 5th grade elementary school in Texas. The teachers will assess their students' reading skills to find students who are below reading level. Small group phonics instruction will begin with decodable text and progress monitoring. So where did this all come from? I discovered that there was a problem really before the pandemic, but especially after the pandemic, where an alarming number of students are showing gaps in their literacy education. Students in upper elementary are struggling to decode and comprehend text at their expected grade level, reading level, and these gaps are caused by them lacking skills in foundational reading. So, foundational reading skills are phonological awareness, phonics, decoding. It is becoming more evident how essential these skills are, and we really have to act on it. So, those skills are mostly taught in kindergarten and first grade, and if students are deficient in those skills, then it will show up later on as they get older, and then it could be the root cause of reading difficulties in students in grades 3 through 5. So, some of the research that I did, I had to read about 20 to 30 articles, and two of the things that stood out to me the most were one article by Odins said, or research by Odins says that children in kindergarten who were low in phonemic awareness and received instruction both in alphabetic principle and phonological awareness had higher phoneme segmentation, letter sound fluency, and word reading skills than students who received their alphabet instruction separate from their phonological awareness instruction. So, what that means is that if you're doing letter sound work, but there's no practice where you get to apply it, but also learning like doing the oral work of letter sound work where you're doing just at, but then you take that and you learn that there's a letter that represents those sounds, and then you learn to blend them. That all needs to be done together. If you're doing that separately and not putting it all together, then kids don't make the connections and learn to translate that to print. And then another study, Mesber found that the respondents who favored phonics programs, although the programs may be different, they all prefer to use decodable text to practice decoding. So no matter where it was that they found, if somebody chose a phonics program, they found that it worked best if you paired that phonics with some decoding practice. Because like the other, these quotes basically support one another. So like the other one is saying that if it's just done in isolation and you don't do some application and practice, then it's kind of pointless. And the student doesn't make the connection to text. All right, so my hypothesis is that when first graders who are below reading level at the beginning of the year are given small group reading instruction with phonics and decodable text, they will grow as readers and at a quicker rate than in level text. So, what we did was first grade teachers gave a beginning of year Amplify and BAS assessment. They were trained, after that they were trained on decodable text. So decodables are new to this district, and all 4 teachers were trained on decodables, and then they worked with students in those decodables for a while. They worked with students on decodables for a while, and then progress monitoring was completed in November to find growth. So progress monitoring is where you pull the kids and you only assess them on the skills they were low in, so they're not getting the full assessment all over again to find growth. So, and then also the teachers they continued to do running records. So even though they were working with them in decodable text, every other week they did a running record with students just to be able to still keep up with reading level, because getting BAS scores is still a requirement for the district. So they don't want kids to be shocked when they see a totally different type of text for assessment at the end of the year. And then also first grade teachers completed surveys about their views before they were trained on decodables, and then after they had a chance to use them in small groups for about a month. Teachers did have more confidence in themselves and their ability to use decodable text after a while. All right, so results. These two bar graphs compare beginning of year Amplify and VAS data. So here we've got all 4 classes, and this up here is VAS data, and then this down here is here is Amplify, and then this is VAS data. So if you look at this, the whitish color is below level. If you look at the below levels in Amplify and in VAS, they're pretty close. Like, and in Amplify, this is really a combination of well below and below students, because in VAS there is no well below. So I combined the well below and below to get below, and then so like here it's about 50-something% in this one class is below and Amplify. I'm sorry, about 50-something% is also below in VAS. And so they pretty much, this class does have more below and Amplify, but for the most part they're about the same. The on-level students, the brown here, there is a big difference in those, and then it does look a little bit more similar for the above-level students. But in class 2, I noticed that there are a lot more above here in VAS than there were in in Amplify, I'm sorry. So there were a few outliers that stuck out, made me think of, ask a few questions, is this a new teacher? Is there, could it have been a training issue? Could it have been an assessment issue? So all those things we do take into consideration. All but 4, so students showed growth in decoding and phonemic awareness in Amplify after they received their progress monitoring. All but 4 of the students who are working in decodable text have also increased reading levels. So even though they're not getting specific work in a level text, they're still growing in level, as well as growing in phonemic awareness and in decoding.
That's awesome.
Teachers do feel more confident in their ability to teach using decodables, but some of the teachers in their survey did express that they had reservations about decodable lessons take a little bit more time, so they feel like they're not able to get to as many lessons as they can when they're doing guided reading lessons. And also, they do have concerns in trying to keep up with levels and trying to grow them in their phonemic awareness skills at the same time. Okay. So in conclusion, like many of the other studies that I've found,
teachers, please pardon this interruption. Grades
So
3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. If you are purchasing a lunch, please bring your lunch card with you to the sing-along. If you are getting a lunch, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, please bring your lunch cards with you to the sing-along. You're going to pick up your lunch after the sing-along is over. Thank you.
so like many of the other studies that I found, this study did not necessarily show that instruction in decodable text works better than instruction in level text. It just similarly showed that decodable text instruction does work. This is the first year using progress monitoring assessments, so there is no past Amplify data to compare to when students are receiving level instruction only. My recommendation is that in future practice, teachers should use a beginning of year assessment and continue to use that assessment to find student strengths and weaknesses as it relates to foundational reading skills. That data should be taken and analyzed to make groups of students with similar weaknesses and strengths so that they can receive instruction on those skills. And I feel that teachers do not need to worry about reading levels in kindergarten and first grade. Those grades are for development of reading skills, and if those skills are mastered, students will naturally grow as readers. And thank you for listening. Do y'all have any questions or wonderings?
I'm just wondering, now that this is in place, like, I'm curious to see what the data will show once they get to 2nd grade and can show like the foundational skill growth
Right.
for future grades.
I am too, and Second grade is not, at this moment, latching on to it as much as first grade is, but the hope is that they will. I'd like to do more trainings with them because they're obviously going to need to do, they have students on these low levels
Right.
there as well, and so they'll need to do the same thing. And the district has taken away the reading level requirements for kindergarten now so that we can focus on
That's good.
developing these skills, and so I don't know if that same thing will happen next year with first grade, but they are talking about it.
That
Wow.
would be great.
Mm-hmm. So they don't have to report reading level in kindergarten at all this year.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
because I
they
think
still massing?
Nope,
No?
they don't have to.
Interesting.
because I think we have gotten away from those foundational skills,
Mhm.
and for them to be allowed to focus on that, I can't wait to see the data
Yeah.
later.
Interesting.
Thank y'all.
You're welcome.